bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
Tune in and help fight back against the mainstream media.
This is your blowtorch of free speech in America. Thanks for joining us.
All part of the Real American Voice family. You got the War Room.
Real America's Voice is growing our family of networks across the country.
And thank you for joining me tonight, everyone here at your new home for Real News, Real America's Voice.
Well, Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real American Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
Live from Studio 6B on a Wednesday night, Real America's Voice, Dish Network Channel 219, Pluto TV Channel 240, Samsung TV Plus Channel 1029, 1029. Glad you're in on a Wednesday night. Rick Delgado's here with the news. How are you?
I am well. How about you, Dave? I see you're ready to rock, just like the Islanders.
Islanders are up 1-0. I am ready to rock. That was kind of a slow day in news, other than Gramps is traveling. I text Gio today. I said, Gio, make sure we pull this speech he's doing because he's traveling, on Air Force One, and it's 6 hours ahead, and he's barely there when he's here on U.S. time. So I figured this speech could be real magic gold because he's going to be all off kilter. And I actually said to Gio, he might fall asleep at the podium. We want to make sure we grab that if it happens. Gio actually tells me that he must have got some sleep. Well, we know he got sleep on Air Force One because someone else was doing his job, which we'll get to that as well. But so there's lots to talk about. Rick Emirati's here with sports. Islanders are up 1-0 early. What else is coming up in sports?
We have some French Open results as well. Last U.S. Player is now officially eliminated, so it's going to be an all-European final. And we also have the Houston Texans. Ironically, they canceled their mandatory minicamp next week, which is awfully odd, so we're not sure what's going on down in Houston. And obviously, we're going to have reports on the Islanders game, and we have an NBA playoff game later with the Suns.
Well, the franchise is pretty much a disaster. That's what's going on. That's why J.J. Watt said, love you guys. See ya. I'm out of here.
Yep.
And now the quarterbacks and all kinds, so that's why it's a disaster down there. That would be my early guess. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
So I saw a comedian once that said, and I've always remembered this, and I always thought it was a pretty good idea. Everybody should start the day with a handful of marbles. And every time you say or do something stupid, you have to give a marble back. When you're out of marbles, you go home in your room, lock the door. No one's to be heard from you again. If that's the case, Elizabeth Warren would be in her room every morning by 9 a.m. That's a fact. Well, most Democrats would, but she specifically. So I'm going to get to her and why I say that in a second. On a number of issues today, Big Chief Dumbass was out and about and making her just nonsense. When you hear, she was interviewed by somebody at Real America's Voice, actually, and I unfortunately don't know who it was who had the microphone. But when you hear the clip we got from her today on the filibuster, I mean, it's a 3 marble statement. That's what it is.
She emptied the bag on that one, basically. There you go.
It's pretty much a handful. It's pretty much, okay, see you guys tomorrow. Try again tomorrow. That should be the rule.
And she should have been forced to walk on them as well as she walked away and just slip and fall.
Yeah, and then she was part of some subcommittee on finance today, and she's talking about Bitcoin and crypto. And if there's somebody more ill-informed than she is, someone would have to point out to me who it is. Someone would have to point out to me who it is, because everything that she says is just wrong and ill-informed and, quite frankly, stupid.
That's a couple bags of marbles right there.
Yeah, sounds harsh, but I that's what it is. It's really unbelievable. So I'll get to that too. But I want to start with something I wanted to get to yesterday, because we've talked a lot about this on this show. I had COVID-19. We've gone through this. Rand Paul has been a huge defender of our freedoms and calling out the phony Tony Fauci, quack, throughout for his theater, which it is. In his mask flip-flopping, he's been around more than a drum and a clothes dryer, this guy. He's been everywhere. He's been in front of the camera more than Stormy Daniels, which is why I call him the Stormy Daniels of medicine. And so yesterday, we get this. Headline: No point vaccinating those who've had COVID-19. Findings of the Cleveland Clinic. So this is not like, Joe's Bar and Grill and science testing down. This is you get my point.
It's not like the pharmacy drugs you might get cruising down some shady little alley. No, this is real science.
Right. It wasn't like, come get a dozen Krispy Kremes and by the way, we'll give you some this is from the Cleveland Clinic, USA, have recently evaluated the effectiveness of coronavirus disease 2019 vaccination among individuals with or without a history of severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 infection. The study findings reveal that individuals with previous SARS-CoV-2 infection do not get additional benefits from vaccination, indicating that COVID-19 vaccines should be prioritized to individuals without prior infection. The study is currently available on the preprint server for MedRxiv. And then it goes into a little background of the FDA. The U.S. provided an emergency authorization for 2 mRNA-based COVID-19 vaccines developed by Pfizer and Moderna, which have shown high efficacy against SARS-CoV-2. In order to ensure fair access to vaccines throughout the world, the COVID-19 Vaccines Global Access Initiative was launched in many countries. Now, Rand Paul talked about this, and people scoffed at him, saying, What is this guy talking about? He doesn't want to take the vaccine because he's saying we have to save it for other places. People on the left and in the media were like, made it out that was some idiotic statement he made. Like, don't worry about it. We'll have that's a lame excuse for why you don't want to take it. Whoa, the Cleveland Clinic disagrees. In many countries, especially those with low socioeconomic status, there is a serious shortage of vaccines. Thus, in order to get the maximum vaccine benefits, the most vulnerable population should be prioritized for vaccination. Currently, most countries prioritize vaccination for healthcare and other frontline workers, elderly people, and people with comorbidities. To further narrow down the prioritization criteria, the scientists in the current study have evaluated the necessity of COVID-19 vaccines for individuals who were previously infected with SARS-CoV-2. Then it talks a little bit about the study design. And this is important because, again, this is not some fly-by-night thing where they threw 10 people in a room. 52,238 employees in the Cleveland Clinic. A positive RT-PCR test was considered to define the COVID-2 infection. The participants received 2 doses of the Pfizer, BioNTech, or Moderna COVID-19 vaccine at an interval of 28 days. A participant was considered vaccinated after 14 days of receiving the second vaccine dose. Similarly, a participant who tested positive at least 42 days before the vaccination initiation was considered previously infected. Of all enrolled participants, 5% had previous SARS-CoV-2 infection compared to 59% of non-infected participants. Only 47 of previously infected participants were vaccinated by the end of the study. About 63% of all vaccinated participants received the Moderna vaccine. The analysis of cumulative COVID-19 incidents revealed that during the course of the study, SARS-CoV-2 infection occurred almost exclusively in participants who were not previously infected and were not vaccinated. Interestingly, no significant difference in COVID-19 incidence was observed between previously infected and currently unvaccinated participants, previously infected and currently vaccinated participants, and previously unaffected and currently vaccinated participants. The participants from these 3 groups exhibited a significantly lower incidence of SARS-CoV-2 infection compared to the previously uninfected and currently unvaccinated participants. Specifically, all of the infections during the study period, 99.3%, occurred in participants who were not infected previously and remained unvaccinated. In contrast, only 0.7% of infections occurred in participants who were not previously infected but were currently vaccinated. And it goes on and on and on and on. And so basically, and Rand Paul tweeted about this. He said, "Great news. Cleveland Clinic study of 53,000 employees show unvaccinated people who have had COVID-19 have no difference in reinfection rate than people who had and took the vaccine. The immune response to natural infection is highly likely to provide protective immunity even against the SARS-CoV-2 variants. Thus, recovered COVID-19 patients are likely to better defend against the variants than persons who have not been infected but have been immunized with spike-containing vaccines only." So this is a significant study, and it's just another check mark in the column of real science, of actual science.
And now, has the Cleveland Clinic had their page taken out off of Facebook yet and been silenced by Twitter? And are people calling for them to be wiped off the planet?
I don't know if people are calling for them to be wiped off the planet. Okay. I actually don't know the answer to any of those questions. I can only assume people have tried, but I don't know. But there's no getting around, again, follow the science. Well, this is real science. This is actual science.
Yeah.
These are actual results from a significant number of people in a trial. Not a small trial. 53,000 is a pretty decent size.
Yeah, and you've got someone like a Senator Rand Paul, I should say doctor, because he's a doctor as well. He's able to kind of glean through this stuff and pull out the necessary information to share and make it easier for everybody to understand and say, look, here's basically what it's saying. If you've had it, you're good. You don't need the vaccine. There's going to be no difference. There's no benefit for someone who has been quote unquote, considered positive now to go ahead and get the shot. You don't need it.
Right.
And I think that scares.
So here's the problem. here's the problem. When is this going to now seep into our society for people who have had it and obviously see no benefit, if not maybe possible harm in retaking a vaccine when you already have full immunity from the disease? Because as an example, if you wanted to go to the Islanders game tonight, you have to show proof of vaccine, and that's if you want to sit, by the way, in the vaccinated sections,
and good
which
luck
are the
finding
only
tickets.
seats, which are the only seats that are any decent in the Nassau Coliseum here on Long Island. If you don't have a vaccination, you have to go get a test to prove you're negative within 6 hours of the game, and then they restrict you. They actually segregate you, if you want to know what it is, to seats in the upper decks that are considered the socially distanced seats. So they have the fully vaccinated sections all around the bottom by the ice, and then they have the socially distanced seats, which are up in the roof. So there's no consideration for people who had it, recovered, and now clearly the Cleveland Clinic says are as protected and have zero chance almost of spreading it as someone who took the vaccine. But there's no consideration for these people. People like me, if I wanted to go. None. They don't even consider it. Scientific segregation going on in places.
On Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
Tune in and help fight back against the mainstream media.
This is your blowtorch of free speech in America. Thanks for joining us.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
Real America's Voice is growing our family of networks across the country.
And thank you for joining me tonight, everyone here at your new home for real news, Real America's Voice.
On Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
All right, 17 past the hour, live from Studio 6B on a Wednesday night. Glad you're in. Rick Emirati's going to have sports. What's the Islander update, Rick?
Tied 1-1. The first period just ended. The Bruins were on a power play and scored. So I guess their coach, he got Bruce Cassidy. He got his way because his $25,000 investment got him a goal.
Okay, so we'll be giving you updates throughout the night as the Islanders try to close it out here. I don't know. We talk about this like people are really interested other than us. Nobody cares.
We have a lot of Tampa Bay Lightning fans, Big D, that follow.
They're tough. They're tough. They're going to be tough.
Tough out.
All right, but let's do some news right now with Rick Delgado sitting in for Paul Nolan, who's at the Islander game live right now. What's going on, pal?
Turns out a lot's been going on. We talked a lot about this the last couple weeks is, the parents who are standing up, making their voices heard over at these school board meetings. And Virginia has been really a big area, or this one particular place, Loudoun County, seems to be a big area where this is happening a lot and has been a center point for a lot of people. It came to another head last week as a Virginia teacher was placed on leave after a speech disputing a biological boy versus a biological girl. The elementary school physical education teacher in Virginia, his name is Tanner Cross. He was placed on leave after an explosive speech in which he told the school board he wouldn't affirm that a biological boy can be a girl and vice versa. It was during a Loudoun County school board meeting on last Tuesday where he got up and made a speech. And again, he was invited to come speak, and this was open to the public. We actually had that clip of this speech. It's cut 32. G, let's go to that.
My name is Tanner Cross, and I'm speaking out of love for those who suffer with gender dysphoria. 60 Minutes this past Sunday interviewed over 30 young people who transitioned, but they felt led astray because lack of pushback or how easy it was to make physical changes to their bodies in just 3 months. They are now detransitioning. It's not my intention to hurt anyone, but there are certain truths that we must face when ready. We condemn school policies like 80-40 and 80-35 because it will damage children, defile the holy image of God. I love all of my students, but I will never lie to them regardless of the consequences. I'm a teacher, but I serve God first, and I will not affirm that a biological boy can be a girl and vice versa because it's against my religion, it's lying to a child, it's abuse to a child, and it's sinning against our God.
All right, and again, that's the speech that he made, again, at an open school board meeting. He was invited to do so. He made his personal thoughts and feelings known, and with that, Principal Sean Lacey let them know that I'm contacting you to let you know that one of our physical education teachers, Tanner Cross, is on leave beginning this morning. He let the people of Leesburg Elementary School know. In his absence, his duties will be covered by substitute staff. The principal continued, I wanted you to know this because it may affect your student's school routine, blah, blah, blah. It's unclear why exactly Cross was put on leave, but you can imagine why. Well, it turns out there was a lot of blowback, and it all happened this week as the Virginia board meeting exploded as members faced backlash for the suspension of Tanner Cross. This from Fox News. Again, he was suspended after the speech criticizing the school's proposed policies surrounding gender. With that, one of his fellow teachers, a man named Byron, a gentleman named, where is it? I lost it. Jeremy Wright came to his defense, one of the many that came to his defense, and had this to say to the school board, the Loudoun County Public School Board, on a microphone in front of everyone over this, what was going on.
By now, the school board has made it perfectly clear that they no longer serve their community or their students, just partisan activist groups. So I'm not here to speak to them, but the people they no longer feel obligated to serve. Loudoun County parents, students, and teachers, we've been deceived. We thought we had a voice in this system, that we could trust the people in charge. We were wrong. For years, we have allowed so-called experts to decide the culture for our schools with little input from taxpayers who fund their programs or teachers who make them work. We've been lied to, attacked, silenced, and had our jobs threatened. They counted on us to fold, but they counted wrong, which explains a lot. Tanner was invited to speak here, voiced his opinions in good faith, and was banned from LCPS property. Now that he's been reinstated by a judge, we must ensure this never happens again. For the members of Chardonnay Antifa, here is your assignment with a copy of the First Amendment attached. I'm going to lead this here, and I hope you learned something.
And you can see the reaction there from all the parents there that were joining in this dramatic meeting at Loudoun County Public School Board, filled with more testy confrontations and other moments. One other person spoke up and said, "Where's your regard for our freedom of speech?" asked parent Rachel Pisani, who said she was a mother of 3 in Loudoun County. "When I saw a teacher express an opinion and then suspended for expressing his religious beliefs, I can no longer stay silent. When did it become acceptable to be tolerant only when someone expresses a view that we agree with? When did it become appropriate to silence those that hold Christian or biblical views just because you don't? When did it become appropriate to allow the school board? I don't know who you think you are, but it's not appropriate. It's not allowable to silence, bully, and to dismiss our views." So as you can see, the parents, and we've talked about this before, this is where it all starts. This critical race theory, what they're fighting back against, and some of the other nonsense that's going on in those schools. It's kind of crazy. I had an opportunity to see some of the other stuff where the parents stood up and read some of the passages from the quote-unquote diversity books that have been allowed in these schools. And it's worse than 50 Shades of Grey. This stuff is disgusting. Like stuff, we couldn't say it. Even though we're on cable or online, we wouldn't be allowed to say some of this stuff that these 10, 11, 12-year-old kids are being asked to read. It's crazy.
I'm going to spend some more time on this topic in the next segment because there's another clip that I have from that same school board meeting. And it's an actual if I listen to her correctly, I believe she's an actual educator in the district. And the great Michael Ferris, who's the president and CEO of Alliance Defending Freedom, also has an article about this. And we started to talk a little bit about this last night with the mother up in Carmel, New York.
Yeah, Tatiana.
And then some of this other stuff we're seeing. You're obviously seeing places like Florida and other places that are passing legislation or executive orders to ban critical race theory. So I believe, and this is to Mr. Ferris's article, which is entitled "The Coming Backlash Against Woke Public Schools," and I believe there is a groundswell of that starting to happen. Now, I don't know if it will be how much it'll have an effect in trying to stop the dissemination of this poison and garbage, but I do believe there is a coming backlash to this. And Mr. Ferris, who we should try to get on the show, can eloquently put this better than I could ever put it. But we talked about Joe. It only takes one.
Yeah.
Talked about Joe Manchin, and we'll still see if he can stick to his guns over the enormous pressure he's gonna face from Joe Biden, from Kamala Harris, from Barack Obama, to all of them. But sometimes it only takes one voice to say, no, I'm sorry. I draw the line here and I refuse to give in. And then someone else says that. And whether it's on the filibuster for and all of this, or whether it's teachers or a college university president, or it only takes one at a major institution to say, no more. This has gone far. And then someone else says it.
Yeah, and it just starts to gather steam where people feel like, you know what, I guess it is safe to say, and it's crazy to say that they might have to say, oh well, I guess it's safe to say this now. What are you talking about? It's always safe. That's one of the things we're talking about with freedom of speech and expression is it's safe to say these things if that's how you feel. It's your opinion. One teacher, Monica Gill, who also works in that district, she added first and foremost, what is important? We live in truth, not lies. We look at character, not skin color. We love our Lord. We love each other. Know this: we will not yield. We will not let you have our souls and the souls of our children. So not only the parents, but even the teachers in those districts are starting to stand up and say, no, this is too much.
Well, you think of President Trump's 1776 project and how important that would have been. And of course, Biden got rid of it on, I think, day one. These kind of things that are going to build steam make 2022 and 2024. I know we say this every time, but after these 2 years and then 4 years, it's literally going to be the single 2 most important elections we've ever had.
America's voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
Tune in and help fight back against the mainstream media.
This is your blowtorch of free speech in America. Thanks for joining us.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
Real America's Voice is growing our family of networks across the country.
And thank you for joining me tonight, everyone here at your new home for real news, Real America's Voice.
With Real America's voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
All right, live from Studio 6B, 30 minutes past the hour. Rick Delgado's here with the news. Rick Emirati's going to do sports. Coming up, Gio Fran holding it down as always. So before I get back to the education thing, I just want to quickly touch on this fraud Fauci, just to show you even more what a fraud he is. He went on Anderson Cooper's show on May 2nd of 2020. And Cut 36G, here's that exchange. Roll it.
Knowing the science, does it make sense to you that some states are still not issuing stay-at-home orders? I mean, whether there should be a federally mandated directive for that or not, I guess that's more of a political question, but just scientifically, doesn't everybody have to be on the same page with this stuff?
Yeah. I think so, Anderson. I don't understand why that's not happening. As you said, you know, the tension between federally mandated versus states' rights to do what they want is something I don't want to get into. But if you look at what's going on in this country, I just don't understand why we're not doing that.
Yeah.
We really should be.
That's why.
Okay, stop
I
it for a
appreciate
second.
you being very...
Pause it. We'll go back to this. Pull up the email, G, if you can get that ready. You can get rid of that clip. So I'll just set this up while you're getting it ready. So Ezekiel Emanuel, who's one of Joe Biden's chief medical advisors. Well, I mean, look at the date here. This is May 2nd, 2020, 7:24 a.m. Email from Zeke Emanuel to Anthony Fauci. Go down. Keep going. Down to the actual email. Tony, you are a national, international treasure, and we are depending upon your sanity and smarts. We can have you and blank over for dinner on the porch and order in from blank or something anytime you're ready. Let's go up to Dr. Fauci's. I don't know why this is not happening, Anderson. All the way back to the top. Gee, I don't know why this is not happening, Anderson. These stay-at-home orders got to be in place for everybody, all the way up. All the way up. Let's try to do it this next weekend. Go back to the clip now. That's Anthony Fauci responding to Zeke Emanuel's invitation to come to his house for dinner. From the beginning, saying, let's do it this weekend. The same day, he goes on CNN, and once again, here's the exchange.
Knowing the science, does it make sense to you that some states are still not issuing stay-at-home orders? I mean, whether there should be a federally mandated directive for that or not, I guess that's more of a political question, but just scientifically, doesn't everybody have to be on the same page with this stuff?
Yeah. I think so, Anderson. I don't understand why that's not happening. As you said, the tension between federally mandated versus states' rights to do what they want is something I don't want to get into. But if you look at what's going on in this country, I just don't understand why we're not doing that. Yeah. We really should be.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you being very clear about that, because I think it is very frustrating, especially for people who live in some of these states, Dr. Fauci.
Yeah. Except unless you want to have dinner with Zeke Emanuel. Then if you're Dr. Fauci, you don't need to stay home while the rest of you were.
Well, maybe because by that next weekend, everything was going to be safe. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, maybe. But just another example of what an absolute gold-plated phony this guy is.
Phony Tony Fauci.
So now back to this, what we've been talking about. Michael Farris, who I told you is the CEO and director, president and CEO of the Alliance Defending Freedom. He wrote a piece called The Coming Backlash Against Woke Public Schools. Parents have had enough of the politicization of their local schools. He says the reports coming out of the school systems of Portland, Oregon and its suburbs are simply terrifying. Children are being taught the narrative that America is fundamentally evil. And the rioters who continue to wreak havoc on that once beautiful, quiet city are held up as heroes. As Christopher Rufo has reported, quote, the schools have self-consciously adopted the pedagogy of the oppressed as their theoretical orientation, activated through a curriculum of critical race theory and enforced through the appointment of de facto political officers within individual schools. And it's working. The schools have become a school to radicalism pipeline. Let me repeat that. The public schools in Portland, Oregon have become a school to radicalism pipeline. But it's not just in radicalized Portland or Seattle where these forces hold. In my own home county of Loudoun County, Virginia, the radicals have seized control and plunged with abandon in a radical direction, leaving much of our community gasping at their tactics and shuddering at the implications for the future of our community and our nation should they succeed. Loudoun is the school district that suspended Tanner Cross for having the audacity to speak for 1 minute at a recent school board meeting in opposition to a proposed sexual political mandate. Let that sink in. Before the policy was in place, a highly regarded teacher was suspended for simply disagreeing with a proposed policy. The legal organization that I lead, this is Mr. Farris speaking, Alliance Defending Freedom, represents Tanner. I was astounded when, in the midst of hearings seeking a temporary injunction to reinstate him, which the court granted, the school district's lawyer volunteered the fact that he was the 8th employee in the past 2 years who has been suspended for out-of-school speech. Apparently, consistently violating the First Amendment rights of its employees makes everything all right in the minds of this school district. Parents know that the curriculum has recently turned hard left. Racial and sexual politics are the prime directive of the school system. Every child is immersed in it. Every teacher will recite the party line, no dissenting allowed. And I'll pause here because thankfully we have at least found one person that is actually not true for. Cut 31, G. This is a teacher in Loudoun County at the school board meeting. I guess it was this week or recently. Roll that.
Fairfax County public school teacher, and I'm going to give a message of encouragement to parents and teachers and students who are too afraid to come and speak forward. Parents, the longer that you wait and you don't hold your child's schools accountable gives these guys more time to dictate what's best for your child's physical, mental, and emotional health. Don't be afraid to speak out for your kids because they are voiceless and they rely on you. You should be afraid of them rooting for socialism by the time they get to middle school. Teachers, it may seem that our careers have come to a dead end, but I'm here to remind you, we don't work for the school board. We work to mold the next generation of well-rounded American patriots. So don't give up because it is up to us. Students, you are on the front lines of these indoctrination camps. Challenge the staff when you're presented with a ludicrous statement and do not allow anybody to tell you that you cannot accomplish anything because of your skin color or to hate yourself because of your skin color. Students, it is up to you to be the next generation of victims or victors. And finally, to the board, this isn't over, and your policies are just as pathetic as making us wear masks.
Nick Gothard, followed by Ryan.
Yeah.
They cut off her mic because
these a-holes on the board tried to cut her mic because they didn't want to listen to it. But good for her.
Excellent.
Good for her, whoever that is. I hope she still has a job, by the way, in this dump of a district that's clearly off the rails. Back to Mr. Ferris's article. The school district in Loudoun County seems oblivious to the fact that they are losing not just conservative parents, but the great bulk of the middle-of-the-road families who simply want their children to try and get a quality academic education. The leadership of the Loudoun County Public Schools may be woke, but they are blind. They do not seem to see the growing signs of an educational revolution that is stirring in communities all across the nation. Parents have simply had enough of the politicization of their local schools in the attempts to turn their children into young but full-throated activists for the progressive movement. Parents don't want their children taught that they are oppressors if they have the wrong skin color. Teaching little white kids that they are evil because of their race is wicked. Just as it was when the worst schools of our past taught little black children that they were intellectually inferior because of their race. Vanishingly few parents want their children immersed in one-sided racial vendetta, seeking to blame 7-year-olds for the acts of some people with their same skin color from past generations. This is racial scapegoating, growing from the same deprived ideology that in times past has conferred guilt and blame on entire people groups based solely on race. Parents don't want their children sexualized with a constant discussion of gender fluidity and other concepts that were considered mental illness just a few years ago, and whose treatments are still fiercely debated by medical experts around the world. And the parents of female athletes are outraged that their daughters are losing spots on varsity teams and awards to biological males who have subjectively identified as now female. Coerced uniformity of opinion is the tactic of tyrants. In international law, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and related treaties all proclaim that parents have a right to insist that children receive an education that is consistent with the values of the parents. And the enforcement treaties make it clear that this right cannot be overcome, even in situations where the existence of the nation itself is at stake. And you get the idea here. There's a little bit more of it. But he ends by saying, school leaders are extremely serious about advancing their radical agenda. But parents who are complacent about many things will not sit by idly while their tax dollars are being used to indoctrinate them. Parents have a limit. Public schools have now crossed that limit and crossed the line. And I'll post this as I do on all of these on our social media. But this is an excellent article. We'll try to get Mr. Ferris on the program because this is something I'd love to talk to him about.
Yeah, and again, the focus here, we're talking a lot about this Loudoun County in Virginia. Turns out now some of the parents, because of all this, are launching a campaign to oust these school board members, which is great because that's exactly what needs to happen. Parents of children, this is coming from The Blaze, who attend Loudoun County Public Schools in Virginia, have launched a new ad campaign to fight the teaching not only of critical race theories in the schools, but to also oust the school board. See, that's where the power is. You have the power. We, the people, have the power. We give these people the opportunity to do things for our kids, for our communities, what have you. But if they go off the rails, we don't have to sit here and take it. So they're on the way to being recalled. From what I believe here, it's one of the parents says, I really believe our school board has lost their way for this reason. We are adding parents, and we are going to take them on, and we want to eliminate critical race theory, not just critical race theory, but critical race theory taught in the classrooms. Our schools are not for ideology. Our schools are for education, and when you lower education, you lower positive outcomes for everyone. So hopefully they get what they're going for. Get these people out of those positions of power. They are poison.
All right, live from Studio 6B. More to do. Sports coming up. Glad you're with us on a Wednesday night. We're back right after this.
Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
Tune in and help fight back against the mainstream media.
This is your blowtorch of free speech in America. Thanks for joining us.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
Real America's Voice is growing our family of networks across the country.
And thank you for joining me tonight, everyone here at your new home for real news, Real America's Voice.
But Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
we're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
All right, 13 to the hour, live from Studio 6B on a Wednesday night. Glad you're in. Rick Delgado's doing news. Gio Friend here. Time for sports now. And here with that, of course, is at Slick Rick Sports on Twitter. Rick Emirati, what's going on, pal?
Hey, Big D. NHL playoff action out on the island. Uniondale, Long Island, the Old Barn, Nassau Coliseum coming to a close this season. Islanders trying to take it to the next series and face the Tampa Lightning. Tampa Lightning, who beat the Carolina Hurricanes last night. They've advanced and are waiting for the winner of this series right now. Islanders are up 3-2, and the score is tied at 1. About 5 minutes into the second period, Travis Zajac opened the scoring for the Islanders, but Brad Marchand added a power play goal for the Bruins right at the end of the period there. So rocking in the Coliseum. I know Paul Nolan's there. Hopefully, I told him before, make some noise. I'm sure he is. In the other series, Montreal won on Monday. They beat the Jets. They knocked them out in 4 straight, and they await the winner of another good series, Colorado Avalanche and Vegas Knights. They're back at it. Game 6 tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. And Game 7, if necessary for the Islanders, will be Friday night in Boston at 7:30. And for the Golden Knights and Avalanche, that game will be Saturday, time to be announced, and that will be in Colorado. So heating up. We're getting down to the final 4 teams, the semifinals. We should know, if not by the weekend, maybe even sooner. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll have a report next segment. Over to Major League Baseball. Right now, a couple of finals today. Rangers 4-3 over the Giants on a walk-off single. That went final about an hour or two ago. Athletics 4-0 over the Diamondbacks, also a final. Cubs 3-1 over the Padres. The Mets right now lead the Orioles 8-1 in the top of the 6th. Looking good for the Mets. Dodgers and Pirates tied at 1, bottom of the 1st. Braves and Phillies tied zip, top of the 6th. Reds 7-1 over the Brewers, and that's in the bottom of the 4th in Cincinnati. The Marlins trail the Rockies 2-0, top of the 5th. Nats and Rays tied at 3. That's in the bottom of the 4th. Tigers lead the Mariners 3-0, top 6. Astros 5-3 over the Red Sox, bottom of the 5th. White Sox, Blue Jays tied at 1 in the 2nd. Yankees up 2-0, top of the 2nd over the Twins in Minnesota tonight. And Indians lead the Cardinals 2-0, bottom of the 1st. 1 game, first pitch at 9:38. Royals at the Angels. Just 1 game in the NBA tonight, playoffs. We have the Nuggets visiting the Suns in the Phoenix Suns Arena. That's a 9:30 tip. So on my next segment, we'll probably just have the beginning of that. That's getting underway. Right now, Phoenix leads that series 1-0, looking to take a 2-0 lead. And the Nets right now looking good. They are up 2-0 over the Milwaukee Bucks. Game 3 is tomorrow night at 7:30. My Sixers, they tied the series up 1-1, and Game 3 will be on Friday night. That'll be in Atlanta. So again, we'll keep an eye on that. And who else we have there? Well, Utah Jazz right now, they're looking good too. They beat the Clippers last night, so they're up 1-0 in that series. And their Game 2 is tomorrow at 10 p.m. So we're getting down to the nitty gritty, Big D. We're going to be in the semis.
How do you feel about being at 1-1?
I'm grateful after the performance that Atlanta put up on Sunday. I'm concerned. Atlanta's won 13 in a row, Big D, at home. So that's a tough place to go all of a sudden. This team has really turned around. So, we'll keep an eye on that.
But now you're home. You're home for the next 2.
No, we're on the road.
No, they're on the road.
Oh, you're on the road now.
Yeah.
We were the number 1 seed, so we opened the series. We had, even with the Nets, if they play the Nets, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, they'll have the first 2 games in Philly, but Atlanta's going to be a tough out for the Sixers. I think Friday night's game is extremely pivotal, not only because it's a Game 3, but I just think the Sixers have got to get that home court advantage back, which they lost. So.
Okay, very good.
Yahoo Sports French Open 2021. Rafael Nadal continues march toward finals with defeat of Diego Schwartzman. This is from Liz Rocha of Yahoo Sports. Rafa Nadal is headed somewhere he knows very well, the French Open semifinals. The king of Roland Garros defeated Argentina's Diego Schwartzman 6-3, 4-6, 6-4, 6-0 in the quarterfinals, finding his way to another win despite brilliant early play from Schwartzman. Coco Gauff falls to Barbara Krejcikova. Gauff, the final American woman or man left standing in the singles portion of the French Open, is heading home after being defeated by unseeded Czech player player, Barbara Krejcikova, 7-6, 6-3. It was the very first Grand Slam singles quarterfinal for Goff and Krejcikova, and both were riding 9-match winning streaks coming into today. Their resolve was put to the test in a grueling 70-minute first set. First set, 70 minutes. After jumping out to a 3-0 lead, Goff was up 5-3 and had 5 different chances to put the match away, but Krejcikova saved all 5 set points and staged a comeback to force a tieback. After losing the tiebreak, Goff was never able to re-steady herself. At one point in the second set, she double faulted, then proceeded to smash her racket on the ground in frustration. By then, the set and match were falling through her fingers, and she wasn't able to pull herself back into it. So, Americans are out of it. They always seem to have a tough time with that clay court. So, it looks like Nadal is going to be a great match. He is going to be facing the winner, and that's going on right now. I got to check on that big deal of Djokovic and Berrettini, the Italian. They were in a tough match, right? He was ahead, I think. Djokovic won, but I'll check that. And then you have Zverev and Tsitsipas in the other semifinal for the men. The women's semifinals, get ready for this one. This is a great lesson in Greek language. Semifinal, Chartria at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova and against Tamara Zidanchek, and Barbara Krejcikova against Maria Sakkari. So those are the games.
I have a good doctor for both of those if you want his number.
And Texans cancel next week's mandatory minicamp. This is from Zach Wasink of Yardbarker. An interesting aspect of the saga involving disgruntled quarterback Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers is that reigning NFL Most Valuable MVP player is subject to fines of roughly $993,000, totaling for skipping this week's mandatory minicamp sessions, but could ultimately have his absence excused by the team. We covered this last night. But similar to Rodgers, Houston's Texans star signal caller Deshaun Watson, who has also remained away from voluntary organized team activities amid reports he wishes to be traded. However, it appears Watson won't have to worry about any financial punishments later this month. According to Sarah Bossop of ESPN, new Texans head coach David Culley told reporters Wednesday he's canceled mandatory minicamp scheduled from June 15th to the 17th because his team, quote unquote, has accomplished all what we wanted to get accomplished during the OTAs. We felt like we needed
while I look for another job already, probably. He's probably thinking, how the hell did I end up here in this mess?
It is a hot mess down in Texas, I got to tell you, for the Texans. But we'll keep an eye, Big D. We'll keep an eye. And just one more real quick one. NFL confirms intentions to hold regular season games in Germany. Zach Wasink of Yahoo Sports. Less than a week after NFL Network's Tom Pelissero reported the NFL wishes to hold future international series regular season games in Germany, the league confirmed the start of a process meant to identify at least one city for such contests. No year for when the first game could start in Germany. It was mentioned in the NFL's release, but they are looking into the international series, which they already do in London. We've also done it in Mexico. Now they're looking to go to Germany. Why not? It's a beautiful country. So we'll have a report on that as that moves along. But NFL broadening their horizons, and that's a wrap in sports, Big D.
All right, very good. Crazy Town, G. Jen Psaki has nerves of steel. Roll it.
Get nervous before press briefing. It really depends on the day. I will say that every day I remember and remind myself that I have an opportunity to go out there and engage with the press and therefore the public every day, given I work on behalf of the American people. But I also am very cognizant of the stakes there. I'm not typically too nervous. I sometimes shake out my nerves with a little shimmy before I go out there, but I always keep in my mind and on my shoulder the responsibility that I have when I go out there and brief every day.
Wow. That's a very nicely produced, slickly produced propaganda.
Wow, she made it through 3 without saying an and then the next she did 3 of them.
It was like raining
in there. So man, just as I thought we were on a roll, no good.
She should have a bag of uhs, and as soon as she's done saying them all, she's not allowed to speak anymore.
All right, hour 2 coming up live from Studio 6B. Glad you're in.
Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
Tune in and help fight back against the mainstream media.
This is your blowtorch of free speech in America. Thanks for joining us.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
Real America's Voice is growing our family of networks across the country.
And thank you for joining me tonight, everyone here at your new home for real news, Real America's Voice.
But Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
Live from Studio 6B, Hour 2. Glad you're in on a Wednesday night. Rick Delgado's got the news. Rick Amirati's got sports. Gio Fran holding it down as always. Real America's Voice, Dish Network Channel 219, Pluto TV Channel 240. Of course, Samsung TV Plus Channel 1029 all over the country. And, of course, all your OTT apps online. Make sure you follow us social media at LFS6B on Twitter, Facebook.com/LFS6B. We need to get that to 100,000 on Facebook. I think we're at about 70 now. So it's growing slowly, but we need to make a hard push towards 100K. Get past that Facebook algorithm as we keep posting really great stuff. Gio makes great thumbnails, great clips, great stuff on the Facebook page. People write me all the time, I'm not using Facebook, Damon. Why are you pushing me towards Facebook? Well, okay. I won't push you there. And then you'll write the next email saying, well, I can't see. Where can I find your clips? So I don't know.
Can't win.
Yeah. So, but follow us on social media. Instagram, we're not too active on Instagram, LFS6B Show. But we're on Rumble, Parler, YouTube, all of them. So just go follow us, all social media. We got good stuff. So I picture sometimes the media in this country, especially when they get stories back in the Trump administration, that they know either they don't have all the facts or they know it's just blatantly a lie what they're doing. I just picture them going on air doing it, and as soon as they go to commercial, I can just picture someone like Chuck Todd going, man, do you believe we're getting away with this? Do you think people are buying this there, John? And then a year later, when the story comes out that they were all a bunch of lying, they go, oh well, and they just move on. And that's once again the case today. Once again the case today. As it always is with the former president, it's hear me now or believe me later. Well, that later for today was a year ago or so when they cleared Lafayette Park and he went to the church. And the media's mindless reporting on that incident. Well, today the IG report came out. President Trump did not order the park police to clear out peaceful protesters with tear gas for a photo op. The park police did not clear protesters outside the White House last summer to make way for President Donald Trump's photo opportunity, according to a new report released by the Interior Department's Inspector General on Wednesday. The report determined that park police were given permission to clear the park hours before anyone even knew the former president had plans to walk over. Federal law enforcement agents used flashbangs and other non-lethal crowd control munitions to forcibly remove demonstrators protesting the death of George Floyd from the plaza between St. John's Church and Lafayette Park in Washington, D.C. on June 1st of last year. Shortly later, Trump walked across the park to give a speech in front of the fire-damaged church. Democrats and the corporate media, never Trump allies, immediately seized on the situation to hammer the former president, accusing him of having peaceful protesters tear gassed so he could have a photo op at the church. Joe Biden posted a particularly disgraceful and overwrought tweet that day. And I think, do we have that tweet, G? The Biden tweet? He's using the American military against the American people. He tear-gassed peaceful protesters and fired rubber bullets for a photo. For our children, for the very soul of our country, we must defeat him. But I mean it when I say this. We can only do it together. That was Joe Biden's tweet that day. Biden seemed to be basing his comments on the false New York Times report that Trump had directed police and the National Guard to disperse peaceful protesters with flashbang grenades and to deploy tear gas upon them for his photo op. According to the IG investigation, quote, the evidence we obtained did not support a finding that the USPP Park Police cleared the park to allow the president to survey the damage and walk to St. John's Church. In reality, the protesters were being cleared so that anti-scale fencing could be installed in the wake of the violent riots of May 30th and 31st, according to the report. The IG report described the violent lawlessness of the BLM Antifa rioters who not only damaged property but sent law enforcement officers to the hospital with injuries. So this was shockingly covered this morning on MSNBC. Chuck Todd was the host of MTP Daily. And here's how it went. Cut 34 is part one of this. Roll that.
Chuck, this is a really surprising finding by the Inspector General of the Interior Department.
Now, how is it? It's only surprising to you and your ilk in the media because you created a story and ran with it because it was a great narrative. When you had no fact. How is it surprising?
It's surprising because they already made up their mind, and that's not their reality. Their reality is he's evil. He must have done it. It has to be, please. That's what they were hoping for.
Go ahead.
Took a look at this, an independent investigation, and they found that the decision to clear the park made by the park police had nothing to do whatsoever. They found no evidence that it had anything to do with the president's decision to have a photo op and walk through there and have a photo op at the nearby historic church. They had decided, the park police, to clear that park of protesters hours before, according to this report, so a contractor could install some anti-scale fencing. And that decision was made irrespective of what Trump decided to do. In fact, there's a moment in this report where we've all seen on video the Attorney General walks into that park and speaks with the Park Police Incident Commander. We couldn't hear from the video what was being said. According to this report, Barr then informs the Park Police that the president is coming down, and the Park Police Commander is shocked by this. And he says, according to this report, "Are you freaking kidding me?" Now, the thing about that episode is it does show that Barr seemed to be trying to speed it up. Once Trump made the decision to come through there, Barr went down and sort of said, hey, let's get this thing moving. But the decision to use force against those protesters, which remains controversial, Chuck, was not made, according to this report, because Trump wanted a photo op. Now, I should also add, Chuck, that this report finds some fault with the way that operation was undertaken. For example, it finds that the Park Police wasn't going to use tear gas, but Washington, D.C. officers did fire tear gas at the crowd. It finds that many members of the crowd did not hear the 3 warnings they were supposed to get to disperse before the police moved in, and it finds that Bureau of Prisons officers, who nobody was even understood why they were there, fired pepper balls at the crowd. But it doesn't second guess the decision to clear the protesters. It says that the Park Police was within their rights, and this is controversial, Chuck. Black Lives Matter is suing the Justice Department in federal court over this, and our own Garrett Hake was there that day and reported, if you recall, that the protests were not violent at that moment until the police moved in and caused violence. That was his direct bird's eye reporting, Chuck. So this remains an issue of controversy. The narrative we thought we knew is not the reality.
So you can hear Chuck Todd already getting agitated.
Can we move this
moaning
along?
into the microphone as the report goes on and on. So here's what so of course he tries to spin it. Here's part 2. Listen to Chuck here. Go ahead.
Except it's weird because you just sort of, and I just want to try to clarify something. Sure. While they're saying the Park Police decision wasn't based on having the photo op happen, it does sound like the Park Police accelerated their efforts when they found out the president was coming. How do they square that?
No,
the report doesn't say that they accelerated their efforts. It just says that Barr went down there and kind of tried to get them to do that. But it actually says that they continued to do. At that point, they were engaging with the protesters. They were pushing them out. Yeah. It was full on, and so they didn't. The report doesn't say that they responded or did anything differently because of what the Attorney General said. But it does, and it also does make clear that there was some violence on the part of protesters in the days leading up to this. There was property destruction. 49 Park Police officers were injured. So these were not completely nonviolent protests, but the eyewitnesses on the scene that day really painted a picture of, hey, things were pretty cool until the cops decided to move in. And, the narrative took hold, and it was widely reported across the mainstream media that Barr ordered this thing to clear the park for Trump. Yeah. And that's not what happened, according to this independent Inspector General report, Chuck.
Wow.
Well, look at that. Ordered cleared. Trump wanted to go, but the two were not connected. That's basically, it seems like, what we're learning with this report. All right.
Bottom line.
Ken Delaney.
Yeah, nice try. Nice try, Chuck.
Ken Delaney. You'll never be on this network again.
And good job, Ken.
Yeah.
I know you're going to have to go into probably mourning after that display. The idea, by the way, that this was at all peaceful is so idiotic. The report itself, the riots near the White House got so out of control, President Trump had to be taken to an underground bunker for safety. Quote from the report: the evidence we reviewed showed that the Park Police cleared the park to allow a contractor to safely install anti-scale fencing in response to destruction of federal property and injury to multiple officers that occurred on May 30th and May 31st. Moreover, the evidence established that relevant Park Police officials had made those decisions and had begun implementing the operational plan several hours before they knew of a potential presidential visit to the park, which occurred later that day. It goes over, USPC officers reported that some protesters threw projectiles such as bricks, rocks, liquids, frozen water bottles, glass bottles, lit flares, rental scooters, fireworks, all at law enforcement officials. Over 49 USPP officers were injured during the protest from the 29th to the 31st, including one who had to undergo surgery for his injuries. Secret Service and the DCNG also reported injuries to their personnel during the time. Damage to both federal and private property also occurred during the protest. So do you see? I mean, they almost did it again right there. Oh, our guy on the ground there.
Right.
Oh, he said.
Eyewitness. He was an eyewitness. That it was so peaceful.
Totally peaceful.
And then the police came there and they started violence.
Yeah, Trump did it. He came down and started throwing flashbangs into the crowd himself.
Molotov cocktails.
We saw it.
Yeah. Idiots.
And as he says, it was widely reported. Well, yes, it was. So where does the president go for his apology from any of these morons? Nowhere. Nowhere, because they report on it there, Chuck Todd grumbles into the microphone, and that's it.
And remember, it was widely reported. That is what they call the wrap-up smear. They tell a lie, everybody reports it, and of course they continue to use that and market it as, oh my goodness, look how terrible Trump is. Meanwhile, it was a complete fabrication, complete lie. It's the wrap-up smear, courtesy of Nancy Pelosi.
This media of ours is, I mean, again, Trump was right. They are really the enemy of the people. This is the same media that told you that this president, they told you that he did this whole story. They told you that he ignored bounties on the heads of military personnel. They told you about Russell collusion. They told you that they had evidence every day. They've told you so many things, and they've been allowed to run with it and report on it breathlessly for days, months, years. And then we find out they're all full of it. And you get 5 seconds like this, and they, we're wrong. Moving on. They're a disgrace.
Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
Tune in and help fight back against the mainstream media.
This is your blowtorch of free speech in America. Thanks for joining us.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
Real America's Voice is growing our family of networks across the country.
And thank you for joining me tonight, everyone here at your new home for real news, Real America's Voice.
With Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
right, 17 past the hour, live from Studio 6B on a Wednesday. Glad you're in. Real America's Voice, Dish Network Channel 219, Pluto TV Channel 240. Rick Emirati's going to have more sports. Gio Fran holding it down. But right now, let's do a little more news. And here with that sitting in for one Paul Nolan is Rick Delgado. What's going on, pal?
All right. Well, touching base on some of the other big stories that have been popping out. I don't know if you've heard much about this. The IRS leak that has exposed the tax information of many, many people here in this country. The Attorney General, Merrick Garland, vows the billionaire tax leak to ProPublica will be the top of my list to investigate, he says. The leak he was talking to lawmakers about, is investigating the source of a massive leak of taxpayer information behind an article by ProPublica will be his top priority. I promise you, he says, it'll be at the top of my list. The article revealed that in some recent years, billionaires such as Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, Tesla CEO Elon Musk, and businessman Michael Bloomberg, Carl Icahn, and George Soros paid no federal income taxes. Attorney General Garland told lawmakers Wednesday investigating the source of the leak behind the article by ProPublica will be his top priority. He said, I promise you it's at the top of my list. The former federal judge said at the moment he knew nothing more than what he learned from reading the sprawling article. Why is it that these guys get away with this, that they only learn about stuff when they see it in the news? It's a lie, which revealed that in some recent years, billionaires such as Amazon CEO Bezos and Soros have paid zero when it comes to federal income taxes. Senator, he said, I take this seriously as you do. I very well remember what President Nixon did in Watergate, period. The creation of an enemies list, the punishment of people through their tax returns. This is extremely serious matter. People are entitled, obviously, to great privacy with respect to their tax returns. The ProPublica article, expected to be the first in a series, did not reveal how the journalist obtains the tax records, and the outlet did not respond to a request for comment. The article says the investigation is based on a vast trove of Internal Revenue Service data on the tax returns of thousands of the nation's wealthiest people, covering more than 15 years. The article adds that the tax strategies used by the ultra-wealthy individuals appeared to be perfectly legal. It said the investigation demolishes the cornerstone myth of the American tax system that everyone pays a fair share and that the richest Americans pay the most.
Kimberly Strassel tweeted today, someone leaked the tax information of rich Americans to serve the left's agenda, but the details don't prove what ProPublica claims. And there's an article in the Wall Street Journal today by the editorial board that clearly points out, obviously, leaking such information is a crime, since under federal law, tax returns are confidential. They say, allow us to fill in the last blank. The story arrives amid the Biden administration's effort to pass the largest tax increases a share of the economy since 1968. The main Democratic argument for a tax hike is that the rich should pay their fair share. The ProPublica story is a long argument that somehow the rich don't pay enough. The timing here is no coincidence. Someone at the IRS or someone who hacked the IRS leaked the documents to influence this debate in Congress. And right on time, Ron Wyden, the Senate chief's tax writer, opened a Finance Committee hearing. What the data reveals is that the country's wealth, quote, he says, this is from Wyden, reveals the wealthiest who profited immensely during the pandemic have not been paying their fair share. Yet the striking fact of the initial ProPublica story, it says the disclosures will continue for months, is how undramatic the findings are. It turns out that billionaires are very good at reducing their taxable income. Who knew? Question mark. Investors and entrepreneurs like Mazars, Buffett, and Bezos make the most of their money from the appreciation in value of their assets. Most of Mr. Bezos' wealth comes from the rising value of the stock in Amazon, which he founded. Mr. Buffett has long admitted he pays a relatively low income tax rate because his wealth is based in the value of Berkshire Hathaway. There's no evidence in this story of illegality at all. As these columns keep pointing out, the rich can afford to hire lawyers and accountants to exploit every part of the tax code to pay the minimum amount of income tax that the law allows. ProPublica knows this. So its story tries to invent a scandal by calculating what is called the quote-unquote true tax rate these fellows are paying. This is a phony construct that exists nowhere in law and compares how much the wealth, quote-unquote, of these individuals increased from 2014 to 2018 to compared to how much income tax they paid. ProPublica says that Mr. Buffett's true tax rate over that period was 0.10%, but wealth and income are extremely different. And what Americans pay is a tax on income, not on wealth. ProPublica makes much of the fact that these billionaires pay a lower rate on capital gains and dividends than they do on income. The story suggests this is unfair, but it is not. And this story goes on, and again, I'll link this on our, but it's just a front piece to try to, again, affect this debate, and it's just nonsense.
It's about let's hate the rich. Meanwhile, the article, like you said, they're using tax strategies that not only the ultra wealthy use, but everybody has the opportunity to use. They're there for everyone to use. Whether you take advantage of them or not, that's up to you. Or whether you can or not, that's up to you. They also said that these strategies all appear to be perfectly legal. That's because they are. They're written into the tax code. That's why they pay these attorneys and these tax attorneys and the accountants to find them so they can take advantage of them, because they're there for everyone to use.
Yeah, but don't worry. All these people who live off your dime on the public dole their entire career, they're telling you about...
Yeah,
okay.
Paying taxes. Meanwhile, over in Georgia, well, things have gotten a little different when it comes to the election. Concerns from a polling manager in Georgia's Fulton County about the unusual uniformity of mail-in ballots from the November 2020 election is the basis for a court-delayed inspection effort that is expected to resume in coming weeks. Polling manager Susie Voiles said that when counting absentee ballots for the 2020 presidential election, she mentioned thousands of them, perhaps tens of thousands of them, for then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden appeared to have been photocopied. Voiles' observation and similar ones from at least 3 other poll workers prompted them to come forward and swear under penalty of perjury that the ballots looked fake. Election watchdogs have used their affidavits to help convince a state judge to unseal all the 147,000 mail-in ballots counted in Fulton and allow a closer inspection of the suspicious Biden ballots for evidence of counterfeiting, the Epoch Times reports. Voiles also said she noticed that all the ballots were printed on paper different from others that she handled as part of the statewide hand recount of the presidential election. She said none were purportedly folded or creased as typically observed in mail-in ballots that had been removed from envelopes. All of them were strangely pristine, she said, who for over 20 years she's monitored elections in Fulton County, which includes much of Atlanta. The watchdog suspect that as many as tens of thousands of ballots may have been manufactured in a race that Biden won by just 12,000 votes, in large part because of the late surge in mail-in ballots counted after the election monitors were asked to leave State Farm Arena in Atlanta.
Okay.
So you've got that. You've got the audit, which they say is going to be done by June 14th. That just happens to be President Trump's birthday out in Arizona. So we'll see next week what some of the numbers start to look like there.
I saw some footage of Representative Vernon Jones and Bernie Kerik out there being interviewed by Real America's Voice. And then I saw some footage of Vernon Jones talking to some reporter who is... really, again, going back to my marble story, she would be down to her last one by the sound of it.
She's walking around with an empty bag already?
Yeah, she would be, at the end of that Vernon Jones discussion, she would have said, okay, see you guys tomorrow. I'm out of here. I mean, he literally couldn't understand what the hell she was saying.
Right.
Neither could I, by the way. No idea what she was trying to get to. She's like, oh, it's public, it's private money, it's funding a public audit. And he's going, oh, okay, is that illegal? And then she'd stare at him because she didn't want to say no. So she stared at him, literally stared at him. He goes, okay, do you want to answer that? No, of course she didn't want to. She wanted to stare at you. I'll take your last marble, please.
America's voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
Tune in and help fight back against the mainstream media.
This is your blowtorch of free speech in America. Thanks for joining us.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
Real America's Voice is growing our family of networks across the country.
And thank you for joining me tonight, everyone here at your new home for real news, Real America's Voice.
But Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
All right, 30 minutes past the hour, live from Studio 6B on a Wednesday night. Glad you're in. Rick Delgado's doing news. Rick Amorati will have more sports. So the president was on Air Force One, and as I told you to start the show, I said to Gio today, I said, let's make sure we grab this speech that he's given, because this could really be set up to be a doozy, because he's probably been awake all day, then he's flying 6 hours ahead. He's probably not going to get much sleep. He could fall asleep at the podium, I told him. That's what I told him. That was the bar I set. Gio says he well exceeded the bar, and he actually wasn't that bad. But still, he was there, and he is the inspiring commander-in-chief. Roll it, Chi.
Our commander-in-chief, the President of the United States, Joe Biden.
And Sydney, you're 14 years old.
Oh, jeez. Oh, boy.
When I was 14, if you please, at ease. I keep forgetting I'm president. When I was 14 years old, I would have been, I mean it sincerely, scared to death to stand up in front of a microphone with a large crowd or a small crowd. See, when I was a child, I used to stutter badly, for real. I had great difficulty speaking in front of other people. And so I expect that when you're president, you'll remember me. World War II was when the U.S. Army Air Force formed the 100th Bombardment Group. And by the way, so let me hear it for the 100th Air Refueling Wing, a.k.a. known as the Bloody 100th. Come on, man.
There he goes again.
As you all know, My mother would kill me if she were here. She said, Joey, I should have turned around and apologized for my back to you. I apologize. But I haven't figured out how to turn a 360 yet. Visited well over 100 countries as president or chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, or as vice president or chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. This is my first overseas trip as President of the United States. I'm heading to the G7, then to the NATO ministerial, and then to meet with Mr. Putin to let him know what I want him to know. We're not seeking conflict with Russia. We want a stable, predictable relationship. We're going to make it clear that the United States is back and democracies of the world are standing together to tackle the toughest challenges and the issues that matter most to our future. Where the rights of all people. I'm often quoted by the press as saying, America leads not by the example of its power, but by the power of our example. Quote another Irish poet, he said, the world's changed utterly. A terrible beauty has been born. We must all commit to an ambitious climate action if we're going to prevent the worst impacts of climate change, limiting global warming to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius, and lead the global transition to clean energy technology. I could go on and on and on. There's nothing beyond our capacity.
Okay.
Except making sense.
All right. Well, gee, if you think that, whatever. I guess that when the bar is falling asleep at the podium, then I guess you're right. He hit
it out of the park.
He hit it out of the park. So.
It's a good thing there wasn't a train station around. He would have gotten lost.
I would like to go back to the made-up brigade. I think
the 100.
I just don't think that.
The 100. What?
I don't think that could be real. I mean, that's just me. I don't think that could be real, but I don't know.
The 100th bombardment group.
I don't know. We'll have to go back and listen. See, maybe it is. It didn't come out like something that's real, so I don't know. So, all right, let's do some more news and hear what that's Rick Delgado. What's going on, pal?
Well, the 100th bombardment group. No, I'm kidding. Turns out Democrat Joe Manchin might be driven to, believe it or not, switch parties. This is coming from Just the News, John Solomon's site. And it also says here that he might be joining the GOP because of the constant attacks now from fellow party members of his steadfast opposition for their far-reaching voting expansion legislation to end the filibuster that requires 60 votes to pass most measures, says David Bossie, a former Trump advisor and president of Citizens United Group. One of the most important people in the country today is Joe Manchin, he said. John Solomon reported on his podcast, and I think Manchin has to be thinking about maybe changing parties. They're driving him. It's very much like Ronald Reagan. If you remember Reagan's famous line, I didn't leave the party left me. I think if you're Senator Manchin right now, that's kind of what you feel like. You feel like the party is the AOC Tlaib party, not the party of John F. Kennedy. Manchin, a moderate Democrat representing the red state of West Virginia, told Vox in April that he never considered leaving the party and also said, I still believe in the principles of the Democratic Party that I grew up with.
Joe Manchin's not moderate, but I mean, in this, I guess, given what he's up against, he's moderate, but Joe Manchin's not that moderate. But okay.
Yeah, he explained his guiding principles as everyone should have a helping hand and the basic necessities of life, but everyone also should contribute. However, his role in the Senate has never been so critical and scrutinized as it is now, effectively being the final vote in the evenly divided chamber in which Vice President Kamala Harris would cast a tiebreaker for the Democrats. I think Joe Manchin is being attacked. He's being called a racist by Democrats. If he changes parties, the world changes. The Biden administration is over. It's effectively over because you go from a Senate Majority Leader Schumer to Senate Majority Leader McConnell, and nothing in the Biden administration gets done. Nothing between now and Election Day, and that's a great thing, Bossie also said.
Yeah. Well, again, it's this Joe Manchin thing is very interesting because it's, I don't think that nothing will get done. I just think the most radical things, if he's able to hold the line, won't get done. And I say that, and again, people probably laugh and think, what is not radical that they're trying to do? So then that's a good point. But at least as far as HR 1 goes, and some of this packing the Supreme Court, ending the filibuster, hopefully those kind of things don't go well. There was some protesters out today, It was 29. They were in front of the Supreme Court, but Joe Manchin was the cause of a lot of what they were there for. Roll some of that.
I have a 3-year-old daughter. I want her to grow up in a democracy.
Okay, well, stop. Hold it for a second. Can I just let's just address this?
We do this all the time, don't we?
If you want her to grow up in a democracy, it's not going to be here, because this is a republic. This is specifically not a democracy. As the founders didn't want a democracy.
Yeah, the only true democracy, young lady, is the one that fell to the Romans.
Yeah, so that's a tricky thing already. So, and this is not the only time you're going to hear that word. So, go ahead.
People act to protect our democracy. That's why I'm here.
I'm out here because I'm actually one of the disenfranchised D.C. residents, and I also want to make sure that the rest of my fellow Americans don't get disenfranchised by all the activities that are currently going on in the states.
Here to express our view that our democracy needs to be saved.
As an election activist who actually volunteered to help re-elect Joe Manchin last time, I'm horribly disappointed at his behavior and attitude recently to protect the filibuster, which is wholly undemocratic. You know, democracy means majority rule. You protect minority rights, but you don't protect right-wing extremism, to thwart democracy and voting rights.
I believe that voting is people power, and if the opportunity is denied to people because of the color of their skin, or because they're poor, or because they live in rural communities, that's a problem.
All of the issues, immigration, they all depend on having a functional democracy, and that is our means to build a new creation.
If we don't do this, then we won't have a democracy to save.
So now the one guy, 4-2, Emirati, 4-2. The one guy, where would he have gotten that line about mob, whatever he said? Well, let me tell you where he got it. Cut 28, G. He must have been here or heard this clip, because here's where he got it. Roll that.
Senator Warren, what do you think is the biggest reason that the filibuster should be abolished, if you think it should be?
Because the filibuster prevents majority rule. The founders.
Stop. This is a sitting U.S. senator. This is a sitting U.S. senator who should have some knowledge of the Constitution, the founding of the country, separation of powers, checks and balances, how the country is supposed to operate. Go back, G. Start this one more time from the beginning. This is a sitting U.S. senator. Go ahead.
Senator Warren, what do you think is the biggest reason that the filibuster should be abolished, if you think it should be?
Because the filibuster prevents majority rule. The founders debated this. They had lived through the Articles of Confederation, where you had to have super majorities. And they seriously considered, for regular legislation, should they require a supermajority in either house. And they said, for some things we should, like impeaching a president, but not for regular legislation. If it passes the House, if it passes the Senate, and if it's signed by the president, that's good enough to make it law of the land. That was how our founders saw it, and if it was good enough for the founders, it's good enough for me.
So when the Democrats used it about 150 times when President Trump was in office, do you think that makes a difference, though, that the Republicans now, to balance out the power, should be able to use it as well?
I think that what we need is majority rule in this country. And giving Mitch McConnell a veto over people's access to vote, over corruption in our government, I think it's fundamentally
wrong. That's 5 marbles. You're done. Yeah. 5 marbles, you're done. So there you go. I mean, that's just. There's nothing about that statement that's great, and that's a great follow-up, by the way, which she didn't answer.
Yeah,
she had no intention of answering that because she had no answer, and that's a great follow-up. I mean,
that's what journalism looks like.
That is a sitting U.S. senator basically saying mob rules is what it should be. And of course, if it was all flipped, what do you think she'd be talking about the filibuster? Well, we know because as he followed up, they've used it 100 times. I don't remember her I don't remember her standing up any of those times and saying, we shouldn't be doing this because it's if the Republicans can pass it with a simple majority and they can pass it in the House and send it to President Trump, we should just get the hell out of the way.
Right, majority rules.
I don't remember her standing up or writing any op-eds or talking in the media or talking on MSNBC or CNN about any of this. Does anybody else?
I think her marble bag was empty that day.
Yeah, so that is just. So she wasn't done, by the way, being stupid today. Of course, after her 5 marbles for them were out, she had to go home, which is where she did part 2, talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which I don't have the clip of because I couldn't deal with it. Listen to it again. But I mean, just so ill-informed. I just don't know how you can be this ill-informed and be on the finance committee or whatever the hell subcommittee she was on. I mean, she went on for 5 minutes and literally nothing she said was correct. Not about its energy use, not about its implementation, not about what it's nothing about it was truthful. Just totally ill-informed.
Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
Tune in and help fight back against the mainstream media.
This is your blowtorch of free speech in America. Thanks for joining us.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
Real America's Voice is growing our family of networks across the country.
And thank you for joining me tonight, everyone here at your new home for real news, Real America's Voice.
With Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
right, 13 to the hour, live from Studio 6B on a Wednesday night. Real America's Voice. Glad you're in. Rick Delgado will do a little more news, but only after we do some sports with Rick Amorati. What's going on, pal?
Big D, we got a good one on the island. NHL playoffs right now. Boston Bruins trying to make a comeback. Islanders trying to hold them off with a 4-2 lead. We got about 8 minutes to go in the third period, and tough game. Brad Marchand has 2 goals for Boston, and Islanders had a real strong second period where they scored 3, but we'll see. Holding on, and that's the scoop in hockey. Now, basketball just underway. The Suns out at the Phoenix Suns Arena, up 17-12 early over the Nuggets. Phoenix leads that series 1-0, looking to take a commanding lead there. Major League Baseball scores. Dodgers 2-1 over the Padres. That's in the bottom of the third. The Mets 11-1 over the Orioles. That's in the top of the ninth. Braves and over the Phillies 1-0, bottom eighth. Reds over the Brewers 7-2. That's in the bottom of the seventh. The Rockies 4-3 over the Marlins, top of the seventh. Nationals 5-4 over the Rays, bottom 7. Mariners and Tigers tied at 3 in the sixth. Astros over the Red Sox 8-3, top of the eighth. Blue Jays, White Sox tied at 1, bottom 4. Yankees up 5-1 over the Twins, top of the fifth. And Cardinals 6-2 over the Indians, bottom 4th. Last but not least, just underway, Royals and Angels 0-0 in the first inning. Baseball Hall of Fame induction postponed now till September 8th. Zach Wasink of Yardbarker. Once again, the induction ceremony for the 2020 National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum class has been pushed back. Per ESPN and Michael Guzman of the MLB website, the Hall of Fame confirmed today that the ceremony held in Cooperstown, New York, has been postponed from July 25th to September 8th. It will take place at 1:30 Eastern Time and be held outdoors with seating designated for fans vaccinated against COVID-19 as well as for unvaccinated individuals. So what do you think? The unvaccinated individuals, whereabouts in Cooperstown will they be sitting? At the local pub down the street? I don't know. Anyway, tickets will be made available at 11 a.m. on the 12th for the Baseball Hall of Fame website. New York Yankees legend Derek Jeter is expected to headline the class that includes Marvin Miller, the great Marvin Miller, the negotiator, Ted Simmons, and Larry Walker. No players were elected for the 2021 class. So it's just going to be 2021 guys going in September 8th. And Montez Sweat, not a fan of COVID-19 vaccine, despite Washington football team bringing an expert to address players. This is from John Keam, ESPN staff writer. Ashburn, Virginia. Washington football team defensive end Montez Sweat said Wednesday he wasn't persuaded to take the COVID-19 vaccine after listening to an expert discuss the matter with him and his teammates, highlighting a battle that remains not only in the NFL but in society as well. Washington coach Ron Rivera had an immunologist who is the leading coronavirus vaccine researcher speak to the team Tuesday. Kizmika Corbett answered questions and provided information about the vaccine via a video conference call, hoping to lessen fears. I'm not a fan of it, Sweat said Wednesday, of the vaccine. I probably won't get vaccinated until I get more facts and that stuff. I'm not a fan of it at all. I haven't got COVID yet, so I don't see me treating COVID until I actually get COVID. The NFL has loosened restrictions for those who have been vaccinated, allowing them to go without masks and to not be tested daily for COVID-19. Unvaccinated players are still subject to all of this, as well as contact tracing, quarantine policies, etc. They also will be unable to interact with other players when traveling or with family and friends on the road. They can't eat in the cafeteria and must adhere to capacity limits in the weight room. Obviously, they want everybody to be vaccinated to move freely around the facility and with traveling, Sweat said, but everybody has their own beliefs and they're entitled to their own decision.
Okay.
So what are they going to do on the field when the game starts? Are they going to, well, we got to, I know you're on the defensive line, but you got to be 6 feet that way.
Exactly. Well, I'm just glad that somebody's speaking up against it, because
Senator John Kennedy was on with Hannity tonight, and he said the following: Dr. Fauci needs to cut the crap. I'm sorry if his feelings are hurt. Maybe he ought to buy an emotional support pony. The American people trust Dr. Pepper more than they do.
That's cool. I like that one.
How do you not love him?
Wow. I like that one.
Oh, man. All right, what else?
Just one more, Big D. Peyton Manning to be the 35th member of the Denver Broncos Ring of Fame. Jeff Legwold of ESPN, Inglewood, Colorado. In what was widely one of the shortest discussions since the late Pat Bowlen launched the idea of the Denver Broncos Ring of Fame over 3 decades ago, Peyton Manning was selected Wednesday as the 35th member. Manning's 4 seasons with the Broncos 2012 to 2015 were historical in almost every way after the former Indianapolis co-quarterback signed in one of the most high-profile pursuits in the history of free agency. In those 4 years, the Broncos won 50 regular season games, 4 AFC West titles, 2 AFC championship games, and Super Bowl 50. So, what can I say? That's a lock, but I just wanted to mention that, Peyton Manning starting to get those on his first ballot Hall of Fame and, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time until Tom Brady goes into the Hall. And that's a wrap in sports. Big D. Islanders still up 4-2 with about, what do we got there? About 5 minutes?
About 5 minutes, yep. And it was almost just 4-3. So.
Bring it home, baby.
All right, before we do a little more news, just one other thing I want to get to. Put up that tweet of Jill Biden. And there's a story. This was out today. Prepping for the G7. And if you know anything about Air Force One and you've seen former presidents, that is where we've had multiple pictures of President Trump and other presidents sitting there at the president's desk on Air Force One. And this prompted me to retweet or respond saying, yes, I'm sure you are, but who's prepping Gramps for whatever Obama wants on this trip? So where is Joe Biden here? What's going on here? And of course, this prompted Matt Margolis to write an article saying, who is really running the country? A Jill Biden photo has us all wondering. So, I don't, again, we've been talking about this. We played the Obama audio. We played the Obama clip of him and Biden talking. And I told you that Obama audio clip should make the hair on your arm stand up because we all know what's going on here. And now we have pictures of Jill Biden prepping for the G7, and Joe's nowhere to be found. She's sitting in the president's seat. I don't know. It's just strange. Very strange. Anything else in news, Rick Delgado?
Yeah, I know we were talking about Joe Manchin earlier, possibly being pushed over to the GOP. Well, turns out 3 Democrat Virginia sheriffs have done just that. A sheriff in Virginia's Smythe County has become the 3rd in the state in roughly the past year to switch his party affiliation to Republicans, citing anti-police rhetoric used by the Democrats. Chip Schuler, who was elected as county sheriff as a Democrat in 2015 and reelected in 2019. Last week, Schuler announced he became a Republican, citing the relentless attack on law enforcement by Democrats. Adam Tolbert, chairman of the Smith County Republican Party, on Monday welcomed Schuler, congratulating him on the bold move to lead the Democratic Party. Tolbert said Schuler was the most recent Virginia sheriff to switch, the other 2 being John McCallahan of Buchanan County and Brian Hyatt of Tazewell County. McCallahan said in a statement last year he can't be associated with the National Democratic Party because it backs laws that affect police, according to the Epoch Times. So a few more people changing their party affiliation because, let's face it, as we've heard, maybe they didn't want to leave the party. The party left them.
Okay.
So you've got that. Also, something here to kind of pay attention to, and I don't know why they're doing it, but hopefully it leads to something. A Democrat and Republican senator are working together to gain access to the Supreme Court justice's travel documents as part of a larger ethics investigation into whether senior public officials need better transparency. Rhode Island Democrat Sheldon Whitehouse and Louisiana Republican Senator John Kennedy sent a letter Friday to the Justice Department asking for the travel records of all 9 justices' trips outside of D.C. since 2011, including where the trip was and the cost to the taxpayers. White House chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee and Kennedy, the top Republican, said that the senior government officials must disclose outside income, gifts, and reimbursements on an annual basis. And maybe they're seeing something here that most people haven't been paying attention to.
We'll see. All right, as always, we salute our military, active and active, police, firefighters, first responders. Thanks to everybody on this show. Thanks, G. Thanks, Fran. Thanks, Real America's Voice. Most of all, thank you, the live from Studio 6B audience. We'll see you tomorrow night on a Thursday night, 8 p.m., live from Studio 6B. We'll see you then.
Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.
Tune in and help fight back against the mainstream media.
This is your blowtorch of free speech in America. Thanks for joining us.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
Real America's Voice is growing our family of networks across the country.
And thank you for joining me tonight, everyone here at your new home for real news, Real America's Voice.
With Real America's Voice, we're making real change happen.
With our grassroots approach to news and our growing family of networks, we're bringing that change to you.
Keep an eye out. Real America's Voice is coming to your hometown.
All part of the Real America Voice family. You got the War Room.
And later, we hear from you, the viewer, the most important voice.
We're bringing that change to you. Tune in to Real America's Voice.